Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with Season 5, Episode 9 of our weekly Q&C&A&T videos. That's questions and comments and answers and talking for anybody newish.
Alright, so we've never actually done this, but we should say that we pick our questions and comments from the comments in our videos.
Yeah. I
want to wish everybody a happy Halloween's Eve, you know, like Christmas Eve. It's a day before Halloween.
Happy incoming
but Halloween itself is an Eve, it's an Eve too.
All
right?
Hallows Eve. Yeah.
Right.
So happy Hallows Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if you're watching this tomorrow, happy Halloween.
That's right.
Or if you're currently watching it at any day that isn't either the day before Halloween or Halloween, happy whatever day it is.
Happy watching your video day.
Happy Sunday through Saturday, one of those days. Okay, our first question comes from John Random, and they say, what if you don't have the Scimitar? What other gear can you use? Thanks for the question, John. This is talking about the Complete Survivor run from 2.12, which is one of our most popular videos ever, and it used to be one of our longest videos ever.
I think it still is. The only stuff we've done longer was when we did a complete challenge run.
Yeah, I say used to because I guess just compared to the length of videos now, it doesn't even seem that long.
Yeah, maybe 10 minutes longer.
Yeah, which is proportionally, right? That's like maybe not even quite 30% longer than this video.
Yeah. Okay, so to answer the specific question, I actually like these kind of interesting questions. Not necessarily because the question itself is interesting, but because of what it implies.
Yeah, and I think this one's cool because the Scimitar, especially when we were using it, it was really hard to replace.
Right, but we don't.
Effects.
But
Sorry.
See, here's the thing: in the actual Survivor run, I don't think it's even that important, right? Because we only had Ghul Scimitar in the early Bronze Team run. If you don't have it, just a basic damage boost with or without crit chance works. I mean, all right, so you lose a power drain, which makes you vulnerable to specials, but it doesn't have to make a difference if you finish the fight quickly enough before getting hit with a special, or if you tag in your tank properly, right? So you manage your team.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, I do want to apologize for those few false starts. That was frustrating for me, maybe you, and also maybe the listening audience. The delay got bad for a second, and I was talking over you for a second there. My apologies.
Yeah, we'll figure this technology thing out.
Yeah.
Eventually. Where were we? So we were talking. The question he actually asked, or they actually asked. I mean, I can assume it's a he, John. Was the Ghul Scimitar? But what's actually interesting is, what do you do without? To me, the most important piece of gear is actually Soultaker sword.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much more important because it's not the early fights that are hard; it's the later fights that are hard. And without Soultaker sword, you cannot use a basic damage attack approach to win.
Mm-hmm. I
mean, you're going to have to rely on specials. And in the last fight with random tagouts, you cannot, well, I can't, manage a Tantu Totem Master's Death Cart loadout team properly because you don't have any control over when they tag in and out. You can't just tag them out as soon as you've done your special so you can tag them in again to get your power back, right?
And they have such an insane amount of health that it's not reliable to get your power back by knocking people out.
Right. So part of me is thinking that it becomes more important now that we've got a real interesting tank potential with the current gear loadout that we've got on New 52 Superman, that maybe you need somebody like that, or maybe even better would be Batman Ninja Batman, so that they can eat a bit of damage, but then have maybe swap out one of those three pieces of gear with the Cloak of Destiny so that his special 2 can do a buttload of damage to give you a chance. But again, the Soultaker sword is more interesting because that's actually more irreplaceable.
Yeah. So there we go. I think that's it for that question. The next one comes from ElectroStrikez, and they say, my account is suspended. Is there a way to dupe account? And I love how they spelled dupe here. It's D-O-O-P. And the reason why I love it is because it looks funny when it's written that way, like just inherently entertaining. And I think it's also indicative of the fact that they've heard us say it and they're spelling it phonetically, which is actually really cool. I like that the idea has been passed on, but the spelling hasn't necessarily. Like I
like
think
an oral history.
Yeah, I think that's a compliment. It's the same way where people who read a lot, I think, sometimes don't know how to pronounce words that they know how to use. And I think it's cool because that's an indication that they listen and retain the stuff that we're saying, and it's actually new ideas, you know? So I actually...
Sometimes, you ever have that moment where you have this revelation and you realize, oh, that's how that word sounds?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, so I like that because it's it makes me feel important.
All right, so dupe, to me, it's because it looks like goop.
Yeah.
Right, goop is actually spelled G-O-O-P.
Yeah, and we're saying dupe as a short form of duplicate, which is D-U-P-E.
Yeah.
Which is, you know...
All right, so maybe even taking a step back and speaking a little bit, taking a bit more of a meta look. All right, because you know how some people say there is no wrong question?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been used enough, it's become cliched enough that I think you lose sight of the fact that people said that originally because they wanted to draw attention, because I think there actually are some wrong questions. Because the answer to this question is, yes, there is a way to duplicate an account. The more important question is, will it help you unsuspend an account? Or okay, even better, will it help you unsuspend your account? Not just any account, but your account. Mm-hmm. And maybe the starting point always has to be this video that we've done. I'll link it in the description and in the eye in the top corner. It's an evergreen video. It's the will blank get me banned. And if anybody hasn't seen it, you should pause this video first and watch that one.
Yeah.
All right, so now if you're back, the starting point always has to be the difference between an auto ban and manual ban. Because if you don't understand that, it's almost impossible to have a proper conversation about it, right?
Mm-hmm. And so basically, we'll go through it really quick. Auto bans are triggered automatically. There's some value inherent in the game, something that they're looking for, that when you have it, your account gets banned. And we know that having way too much money is one of them. We know that in the past, for sure, and also probably now, but it's a little bit different with the ability to buy people in packs or get them, but having characters that you weren't supposed to have was definitely not getting a reason to get banned. So there's either like there's two different types from what it looks like, which is just a qualitative thing, whereas do you have it, do you not have it, can you have it, and if not, you might get banned. And a quantitative thing where there's anytime there's a currency, anytime there's an amount of something, there's a chance that there's a number that's just too much and they'll ban you.
Yeah, and I think technically, actually, they're pretty much the same thing, because having content that you shouldn't have
is having one of it
instead of zero.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's how the game recognizes it too.
Yeah.
All right, so in the video, we went into some of the things that were likely triggers for auto bans in that video. All right, so because here's the thing. I mean, we're not the developers. We don't know for sure certain things, but we can figure some of them out with experimentation, right?
Yeah.
But even after people have watched that video, one thing that people seem to gloss over or forget is that what Warner Brothers checks, it's arbitrary. Mm-hmm. And the values that'll trigger a ban, they're also arbitrary. And I like to think that we've always based our decisions on what's dangerous and what's not, with our own using our own judgment, right?
Yeah.
As to what would be something that would be likely to only catch hackers. And maybe also what would be the least likely to slow down the server, because, you know, with the communication, if they're checking too many different things, then it'll really slow down the game, right?
Yeah, so one of the examples of that is looking at somebody who has too many copies of a gear or too many copies of a character. There's enough of those that, you know, it's totally possible that they can check it, but it seems to be diminishing returns for checking it.
Right, because the number of gears to check the specific spot for, I don't know how many gears there are now, but it's checking a lot of different things as opposed to checking one currency.
Yeah, so it's really easy to manage stuff that there's a low number. When there's only one or two characters that you're not supposed to have, that's only checking two things. When you're checking currency, that's only, you know, it used to be one thing, basically, and now it's, I think, at most three.
Right. Now, here's the thing, too. We know that's not always right, because early multiplayer rewards, that glitch triggered a bunch of auto bans during the Tantu Totem season. People didn't have any control over that, right?
Yeah.
And clearly someone was asleep at the wheel for Warner Brothers when the first challenge for Red Sun Green Lantern,
Yeah.
people were getting banned after legitimately having him early in his season.
Yeah, just winning him quick.
Right. And then everybody, it seemed like, and thankfully that was actually one of the challenges that came out to Android late. And
Yeah.
it was all iOS users getting banned.
Yeah, and it took a while for them to get unbanned too, I remember. Like
It took them weeks. Oh, yeah. Like maybe 4 or 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so here... Yeah, okay, so go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, the issue is that even if at some point we know something bans you, let's say power credits above 1 billion, you could lower that limit, and we've talked about this before. So 100 million is very unlikely to catch a legitimate player. It basically will only catch people who have bought in-app purchases or been playing for like years and years and years and never bought anything. And neither of those people are likely to, A, spend thousands of dollars all at once and not buy anything with the money that they just spent,
Right.
or B, never buy a single pack, never spend any of their money and just let it build and build and build that high.
Yeah, because we're not kidding ourselves. I mean, they're not just looking for hackers. They're also looking for cheaters like us.
Yeah.
So...
But if you're smart, they don't catch you.
Right. So, they... Again, getting back to the whole arbitrary idea, they can change it anytime they want.
Yeah.
So if you're going in with the expectation that somehow there's a hard limit, then you're going to get into trouble again,
Mm-hmm.
right?
So I guess the long and short of it, that's what auto banning is. If your account's auto banned, there's nothing you can do, because what'll happen is your account will
You're
stop.
talking about duplicating, right?
Yeah, for duplicating.
Yeah,
We're getting back
yeah.
to the actual initial question. If you duplicate your account and it's been auto banned, none of the changes that you've made will be saved on your account. And so then when you duplicate it, it'll update it based off of the save, and then you'll get banned for the same reason.
Right, and the problem is sometimes people are fooled and think, oh, it worked, because it doesn't resuspend the account immediately,
Yeah.
and you get to play for a while, but it just gets suspended again, and that delay is what tricks people into not recognizing it. This temporal association, right, is a lot of times how people associate or assume that there's a cause and effect because it happens right after.
Yeah,
in
so
this
there's
case, because it doesn't.
Yeah, there's no way to fix up an account that's been auto banned, but manually banning an account that's been manually banned is a little bit more interesting, because it hasn't necessarily triggered any of the checks. Somebody has reported you, and then Warner Brothers has looked at your account, and then, from what it looks like, just kind of banned you just because the report happened. They don't often actually look too closely, it doesn't seem like.
Right. So it's harder to figure out whether this is a problem or not, because our experience with really experimenting with accounts and taking them to the limit has been with auto bans, right? I don't know that there's any instance where we know that we've been manual banned. And the problem with that is, in my understanding is that there's a good chance that a manual banned account that's been duplicated will also get banned again because of the way the duplication process works.
Because they bleed together in some really weird ways. Like, one of the things about the accounts is that when you jump between accounts that have been duplicated, it doesn't have the same approval process of like asking you which save.
Oh, Superman with his big hand up?
Yeah.
And saying, hold on, stop. Do you want to switch accounts?
Yeah. Yeah, so it doesn't actually have the same checks and balances in place. And so what that tells us is that there is something inherent in the account that shows Warner Brothers, even if they're not actually acting on that, it shows Warner Brothers that they're tied together. It shows Warner Brothers that they come from the same source.
Yeah, and the way I've always sort of understood it in my head is the way that, when you start a Pokemon game, right? It assigns, you pick up trainer name, but it also assigns you a trainer number.
Yeah. Oh, and so like switching to a new account is just like trading Pokemon. It always tells you where it came from.
Right.
That's a really cool way of thinking about it. I think you've mentioned that before, but
well, it's one of those things, right? Like it's when it clicks, it clicks.
Yeah. That's
sort of
that's
when the pronunciation of a word finally hits you. Oh, that's that word.
Oh, there we go. We brought it all the way around, full circle.
It's all recursive.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. I think that's an appropriate answer to that question. Our next question. Well, we got two questions, I guess. These are both kind of the same one. One comes from Topus120, and they say, how to fix a suspended account without changing account. And Azzan Ali says, help me. I got banned for no reason, and I have really high level. Help, please. Android. And there's been some liberties taken with the spelling on some of those words in the last comment.
Yeah, that's okay. You know what? The important thing is that they've communicated their idea across.
Oh yeah, very easily understandable. They've been, these are both kind of straightforward and pretty polite comments, if a little bit sparse on the actual information to be able to help them.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, right? It's impossible to help without more details, but sometimes it doesn't matter because in this case, the only real fix for a suspended account is to have it unsuspended by Warner Brothers. There's really no other way around it. And people have tried workarounds, right? They've tried, we mentioned just earlier, last question, duplication. Also, sometimes they play because as soon as you hit online battle, if you do it quickly enough before the message saying that the account's been suspended, you can hit find opponents in the spot and you get to play. But then for us, at least when I've tried that, it'll ban you after the fight. You don't actually even get to finish the ladder.
Yeah.
And you don't get the rewards. Your account never gets updated on the server. So any progress you make is on the device and that's it.
Yeah,
and if you ever log in again, you lose it.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not a good solution for that.
Yeah.
So
I think we put the rest of the thing about the duplication, right? I think
I think for sure. Yeah. Yep. So our next question comes from, and this is something that you actually did a little bit of looking into, so I can pronounce this better. It's 3 kanji and then Neko-kun, and the 3 kanji translates to Guren phonetically, and Glenn is its closest English equivalent. So this comes from Glenn Neko-kun or Guren Neko-kun. And if you want to look at the kanji, we have the commenters in the description, or usually, I think we can say this with some safety, iProphet will have in the comments the timestamps, or sometimes he's been sick and somebody else has had to step in, but yeah. And so the question is it OP if a character or a gear has the ability to negate, and then in brackets nullify, the opponent's passive? This is a really interesting question. Thanks.
Yeah, because we've got examples, right? So
yeah.
All right, so there's a whole family of NetherRealm games. And we used to play WWE Immortals, and it actually had a character that would do that for, I can't remember, maybe 8 seconds or something after tagging, and it was Jungle Ultimate Warrior. That was his passive, that it would negate the opponent's passive for a limited amount of time right after tagging. Yeah. And if that's the only passive, right? Because we've got characters with a few things.
Yeah, if it's limited time, especially.
Yeah, I think it's definitely not too powerful. And I think it's really interesting. It changes the play a little bit, right?
Well, because there's been specials that make it impossible for people that disable some of their specials, right? As gear effects and stuff. Yep. There's been specials that shatter gear. There's been a lot of stuff that is centered around disabling abilities that the opponent has, right? Like even near the beginning, we had people who wouldn't get power drained. So we've got Red Sun Green Lantern that removes crit damage, right? So there's a ton of stuff that actually removes the enemy's special dodging, ton of stuff that removes the enemy's ability to actually use one of the things that they might have built their team around. And I think with any of these, it's not overpowered. I think what's really interesting about the disabling passives would be that it would be much more generally effective.
Right, and here's the thing too. I think as a passive, definitely not overpowered. Gear, you might make the argument because it becomes more versatile, but with a passive, they can set sort of vulnerabilities to that character, so that you cannot, you have to work with their weaknesses, right?
Yeah,
and it makes it part of the fun and the exercise of trying to plan a team around it, because you have to pick that one particular character and not try to take advantage of, maybe sticking it on, say, Injustice 2 Superman or Arkham Knight Batman and making them somebody who's overpowered, super overpowered.
And what I really like about that as an ability is it gives you an entire new team comp strategy, which is the various trait disabler. Right, and I think that would actually be really fun to have a character who breaks a character in a team who tries to break gear, disable specials, take away passives, and basically,
the Claw of Horus, right?
Yeah.
So you give him a little bit of power generation, you give him the Claw of Horus, you tag him in. Not only do you disable their special, then you damage one of their gears, And then depending on what your other 2 slots do and how you've worked to set them up, that would be kind of cool.
I think
for
it's
sure.
fun to kind of try to figure out the way to most efficiently strip somebody down to just their attack and health stats, basically, right? To try to give them as little bonus as possible and to make kind of null as much of the strategy and team comp. And the reason why it's not overpowered is because whether you're doing that or not, it's totally viable to win fights without it, right? Making some fights easy, being able to plan well enough to make fights easy is something that's already possible with gear and characters that are already in the game. So I think this just gives you a new interesting way to do the same thing that you can do with other characters. It's another path to a goal that is already very achievable, I think, without disrupting the balance at all.
Right.
So there we go. Our next question comes from Momodou Senghore, and they say, okay, so the team is New 52 Wonder Woman with Scimitar, League of Assassins Knives, and Ibis Stick, Dawn of Justice Superman with LexCorp Gauntlets, Clark Kent Glasses, and Saurian Chain, and Blackest Night Manhunter with LexCorp Chest, Fourth World Chest, and Mace. The idea is that Wonder Woman causes a lot of damage, but is used to give the rest of the team power, where we have Superman can cause massive damage with repeating special 1 and having a chance to break gear. In worst case scenario, Manhunter can heal the rest of the team or tank hits to slowly win. Thanks in advance for your advice. And then edit, I've been away from the game for a while, so I don't have some of the newer cards and gears from close to a year. And so this is interesting. I definitely remember Momodou. He's been with us for a while. Thanks a lot for
name.
Yeah. Thanks for the question, and I guess thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah. All right. So let's get a few things out of the way because they weren't specific enough. So I'm guessing that Momodou is missing Tantu Totem, Master's Death card, because those would be the best options for Wonder Woman to generate power. And good thing they fixed in 3.0.1 Ra's al Ghul's Scimitar, so it does give the starting power. But your other options would be something like Heart of Darkness or another power generating gear instead if you were like our first question and you don't have the Scimitar. So here's the problem with that team composition and then trying to make it work. Since New 52 Wonder Woman, she's not generating power as quickly with that gear setup than she would be with Tantu Totem Master's Death card.
Yeah.
Superman is 1 level removed, right? He's like a second degree relative as far as power generation goes. So he's going to be generating even less if you're relying on her passive to pass on power like you're seeing in our fight right now. So gearing him for specials, specifically Special 1, I don't think it's that effective. So you've got 2 Fourth World gears for Blackest Night, Martian Manhunter, which is good for the revive. But I would actually prefer to go with Helmet and Chestplate because the Mace's main advantage is to do splash damage on Special 2. And if he's going to be a healer too, then you need to generate some damage himself when he cycles back into his healing phase. So maybe the third gear could be something to increase his damage more than just a crit boost, right? Which is what you get from the Mace. So maybe power gen, so he's hitting with specials instead of basic attacks when it's his turn and he's healing, because you want just the absolute maximum amount of damage if you're going to want to get any kind of healing out of him, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the main feature of the current meta is super fast specials with Tantu Totem and Master's Death card. And if you're missing those, you're going to be waiting too long to get your specials. And with that kind of roster, I'd be focusing on maybe 2 basic damage dealers. Because seriously, by the time you generate enough power with Wonder Woman to pass it on to her teammates, the fight might already be over. Right? Because if you're not doing a bunch of special damage and you've geared them for specials, but they're not doing a lot of basic damage, you're just drawing out the fight. The other team's got more chance to do specials. What the heck is that? Hold on. Oh, no, that's on my side. I was hearing something. I thought if anybody's listening to this, they're going to think it's like I'm losing my mind and I'm having hallucinations, but I was hearing something.
Okay, yeah, no, I was a little confused, but I was willing to just go with you on it, so I was just keeping quiet.
All right, so so in that kind of fight, you have a couple basic damage dealers, and you treat her passive as a bonus instead of the main feature, right? Instead of something that you can build a whole team strategy around.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Yeah, there you go. Our next question comes from ElectroStrikez. He's coming up again. And I'm gonna actually read. There's a thing that's not a question. It's more of it's a comment, but it's also a joke that I enjoyed. And we're gonna read this. There's not much to talk about, but ElectroStrikez said they should add the man who can climb anything, Slipknot, my favorite character from Suicide Squad in Injustice. And I just want to say, it's so good. I still think it's really funny that they added a character called Slipknot. Considering, like, he was a previous existing character, but they decided to include him in the Suicide Squad, despite, you know, all the different things that the word Slipknot means now, right? Like the band, that have really made him like a weird sounding character to have in the DC cinematic universe, and then also gave him absolutely no character development, just that he could climb anything, when everybody else got like a full, like, the first like while of the movie was like this full like character portrait for everybody. And, you know, people who didn't seem much cooler than Captain Boomerang, didn't seem much cooler than Slipknot, got full things. Like Captain Boomerang got this whole big thing, and you're like, oh, okay, he literally is just cool with boomerangs. That's fine, I guess, right? But he got this whole big thing. And then Slipknot comes in when he literally just gets like pushed out of a van, when everybody's already shown up, and they say he can climb anything, and then they just kill him like 2 minutes later to prove that like the bombs in their necks aren't fake. And I just think it's so funny that the way they set it up so perfectly telegraphed that this dude was totally unimportant, that when he died you were like, oh, he's a character. Like, it was as interesting that he literally did anything.
But so, all right, to me it's like one of those tropes that has gone it's like a pendulum that swung one way and then swung all the way back. Because in fiction, it used to be that when there was somebody that you weren't that invested in, it was easy to kill them off.
Yeah.
And then you had, all right, so probably the most well-known example.
Oh, Justice for Barb?
I wasn't going to say that. I was actually going to say Game of Thrones, but yeah, that works too.
Okay,
But where you go and take a character who you've actually invested a lot of time in, and that wasn't the first place I saw it, but it was Carrying Comfort by Dan Simmons, whereas I really saw that and I thought, oh my God.
I don't know. Kill off people who matter.
Yeah. But now it's swung that, to me, it feels like they're doing it the opposite way. Now that they've established that kind of trope to show that, that everything's at risk, that nobody's safe. Now that they're playing that for laughs a little bit, right?
Because I don't even know if they're playing it for laughs, though.
I think it's an ironic comment on the whole idea that, you need to kill off an important character to somehow raise the stakes and make it feel like anything can happen.
I think you and me have a different level of expectation for the movie Suicide Squad, because what I think it was is that they wanted to do cool flashy intros and they didn't want to waste all this time on somebody that they were going to kill off, and they also wanted to prove that the bombs in their neck wasn't just a lie, right? Because I think the people that they put together were all supposed to be inherently really suspicious, right? So I think what happened was they were like, ooh, I want to do the cool flashy intros. Ooh, I also want to make sure that we know that the bombs are real and that there's like a real actual reason that these people absolutely cannot deviate from their jobs to start out with, right?
Right, because you think these guys in Suicide Squad would be thinking, yeah, right, like that's real. And somebody's got to try.
Yeah, you think one of them is not going to believe them and try to kill somebody, because that kind of seems like what their modus operandi is. And so I think those two things happened, and they didn't want to give up either of those things, and thus Slipknot was introduced. He got pushed out of a van. They said he can climb anything, and then he tried to climb a single thing, and his head was blown up. And that's it. Right. That's his entire character arc. He doesn't say, like, he says like 3 sentences. He's like, I don't believe him, I'm gonna leave. And then Slipknot, the man who can climb anything, climbs one last thing, and about halfway on his way to getting onto the top of the building or whatever, they just kill him. And it was
listen, I'm totally willing to be convinced. I think you make a very good argument for that.
Yeah. It's possible that that's a fun kind of ironic commentary on that. I feel like it's not. I really feel like it's not. I feel like that's too much credit to give them. But anyways, that was one comment from ElectroStrikez, which brought back some good memories. And this is some good memories of a very mediocre movie. And here is another comment from ElectroStrikez, which is a question. Also, how to use metal characters efficiently in MP seasons. And then I'm a Kitty script, which I love because it's Script Kitty, but this is another
What the heck was that on the game?
Somebody said okay Google or something that sounded like that, but I like this because it's kitty script and it's spelled Kittie. So this is another example of the same thing where the term that we were using is script kitty, and I guess we can say it here, it's Kiddie, and it's almost supposed to be a little bit of pejorative from people who know better, but I guess it's
well, it's what it does is it valorizes hacking, which is not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah,
and
so
yeah,
it's a pejorative from hackers to people who are less accomplished. But I think we use it more as a descriptive term because we're not saying like, oh, you're just a script kiddie, not like us real hackers,
Right.
So we're removing it from its context and just using it for its definition. But I think this is another cool example of for somebody to spell it this way and transpose the order like this, they probably heard it first from us, and I think that's cool. Again, same person, I think we're teaching ElectroStrikez a thing or two here, which is cool to know.
Well, all right, so that's interesting too, right? Because it wasn't too long ago, was it like maybe the 1400s? Before the first dictionary, English was like that too, where everything was spelled differently. There was no one way to spell a single word.
Yeah, the important part was understanding and not actually like formal rules, because there was no I heard this.
Curse you, Webster.
Yeah, there's no right way to do it because nobody was organizing everything, which
meant there was no wrong way to do it.
Yeah. It's like dialects and languages, where languages is official and dialects are basically just different ways to speak the same language. And there's the quote: the difference between a dialect and a language is a dialect with a army and a navy, which is just that the only time you get somebody saying that there's the right way to do it is when there's somebody in charge of everything, right?
Right.
So back in the 1400s, there was no dictionary people. Nobody was telling anybody what was right and what was wrong, because everybody was just kind of doing their own thing. And so I think that's the same with dialects and languages, where the only reason there's a right version of English and a wrong version of English is because the government uses one version of English, or official documents, right? The law uses one version of English. So so when you look at other ways of speaking, they're not any more or less right. They're just more or less official steaming.
Right.
But anyways,
and enforced.
Yeah. That has nothing to do with the question. How to use metal characters efficiently in multiplayer seasons.
All right, so you just got the two. We've got the
Merciless?
Batman Who Laughs and Merciless, right?
Yeah.
So the short answer is I don't think it's possible. You want to use them efficiently in multiplayer? I don't think it's there. So aside from just being cards with good stats, and we know this, that your opponents will scale up to what you've got. So improving your stats is not always a good thing.
No.
So aside from being cards with good stats, you've got the exact problem we talked about before. Unless you've absolutely hacked it, which you can't if you're a script kiddie, you don't have enough Valorium alloy to max out the specials. Mm-hmm. So you've got guys.
You can't replace in-app purchases, and you can't buy Valorium alloy with in-app purchases.
Right. So you've got specials that aren't upgraded, passives that aren't great, and need upgraded specials to be even halfway decent, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like there's still gold cards and gold teams that are much better than the medals, and it leaves you vulnerable in fights when your stats are so high, but your character is actually not that good.
Yeah. So there we go. Ooh, there's a question here that I think I want to save for next week. I don't think we have enough time to not be cavalier about it, because I think we actually want to get into a deeper discussion. So I'm going to skip to this question from CornerWeb. And they say, do you guys play any PC games? Or in the past, have you played any? If so, what are they? And yeah, I've played a lot of PC games. You haven't played as many. So
I can tell you the one that I played and spent hours on, though. It would be fast. Ultima 3.
That's true. And I think, actually, I can say what I'm going to say what I'm playing now. And I think I'm going to recommend a game that you have also played. Or one or two that you've also played. So the game that I'm currently playing is Prey, and I recommend it. It is a simulation game. I forget what it's called, but it's basically like an RPG set in space, and there are monsters everywhere, and the scenery can be monsters, and it's pretty fun. It's kind of like a survival thriller game. Maybe you could call it like a survival horror game. I think that's a little like a bridge too far. And then apparently the further in you get, it turns into an action RPG, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it so far. But I can't say too much about that. So I think what I'm going to talk about here is Portal 1 and 2, because you've also played Portal 1 and 2. They're a really wonderful puzzle game. They've got a great sense of humor. They're a lot of fun. They're a fun kind of challenge that is pretty consistent with its difficulty curve. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Do you have anything you want to say about it just in the last minute or two?
The one thing I liked about them the most, and the reason why I don't play PC games in general, is the user interface. So the learning curve is so steep for the controls that I just can't get into it because I feel like I'm missing out on a bunch of the game when I can't actually maneuver properly. And Portal removes all that. Like it's easy to play for somebody who doesn't play a lot of computer games. It's engaging because of the puzzles, and it's interesting. And you're not forced the same way to be like really, high speed, good, fast twitch, really reactive. You can take it slow if you want, and you can still be successful at it.
Yeah, so it uses all the skills that other video games that you can't access use, but it uses them in a way that doesn't stress really high proficiency with, and it more stresses the basic ability to use them, just so that it doesn't make it like really difficult to play. There's very few sequences where you need to go fast, or you need to like really like super know your stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's I think that's perfect. Yeah, so that's I would say an intermediate accessibility level, where you need to be willing to use a lot of the more difficult aspects of first-person gaming. It's basically a shooter without bullets.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun. It's a really good puzzle game. So there we go. I think that's it for now. If people want more game recommendations, I have so many.
Maybe we'll put them in the description?
Yeah, well, I have a ton. There's not enough to even put into the description. Like it would be bloated. So maybe if we have time, we can talk about them in future videos. But anyways, we're out of time. We need to give a huge thank you to a very special group of people. That is our patrons. You can become one by going to patreon.com/bdckr. But more important, in our limited time, we want to give a huge thank you to the people who have already made that decision. You want to take it away?
Yeah, and I just want to say I appreciate very much that last time you did not make fun of me for being old. Actually, I didn't care, but it's nice of you not to make fun of me for being old, but for saying www.patreon.com last time. Because somehow,
yeah, no problem.
As the internet has evolved, it's become much more streamlined, and people understand that you don't have to put HTTP : is it backslash or forward slash?
Anyways, I think it's double backslash. Or wait.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so a huge thank you to our patrons.
So thanks to Eddy G, Edwin Felix, and Console Peasant, who are supporting us at the highest last word tier. iProphet, who's supporting us at the Your Message Here tier. And Shawn, Farrell, and Daniel Simonson, who support us on the credited level. And every once in a while, we like to stick in their names, even though it's at a level that we didn't promise any kind of credit. For Forrest Viking, and Laszlo Georgiades, and Chris Wolf, thank you too.
Yeah, we appreciate all of you guys, especially as our content has apparently become more and more self-indulgent. So thank you guys so much, and thanks to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.